Okay, everyone, I'm going to get started with introductions and kick us off, and then as people trickle in, we will admit them. So thank you, everyone, for joining us today. This is the October edition of our 2022 Farm to School webinar series. I can't believe that this is our 10th webinar this year. Time is flying by. This week, or I guess this month, we are going to hear from two presenters who live and work in areas that are a little bit different from one another. We're going to hear from Corey Scott and his program in Paoli, and I will introduce him. And we're going to hear from Riley Johnson and his program up in Fort Wayne. So really hoping to give some inspiration as to what farm to school might look like in different communities with different space allocations and different supports in and outside of their school programs. So we're going to start with Corey today, and then we'll hand it off to Riley to round out our presentations, but I'm going to introduce both of them right now. So Corey Scott is a teacher at Paoli Junior Senior High School, and he's been there since 2005. He taught at West Washington Junior and Senior High School before that for about 5 years and is a graduate of the Ag Education program at Purdue. He has a wonderful wife, Maya, who also teaches at Paoli, and a son, Kenyon, and a daughter, Kylie. They also own the Super Burger in Paoli, which they bought in 2014, which is so exciting. And he teaches advanced life sciences, animal science, introduction to agriculture, the principles of veterinary careers 1 and veterinary careers 2 at Paoli. So lots of really great experience teaching our students in this space. And so we're excited to have him today. And after his presentation, we will hear from Riley, who, hold on, sorry, my computer's bugging out on me. There we go. Riley is the director of AMP Lab at Electric Works, which is a new 11th and 12th grade capstone program for the Fort Wayne Community Schools. And it's housed under a multi-use redevelopment of the old General Electric campus, which is pretty interesting and exciting. Prior to this role, he was a founding teacher of the New Tech Academy at Wayne High School and the principal of the New Technology High School, which is the flagship of New Tech Network in Napa, California. Mr. Johnson is passionate about disrupting traditional education and providing students with opportunities to build social capital and generational wealth. So we're really excited to hear from both of them today. I'm going to be sharing screen for Corey, so let me get that up and he will kick us off.
So my turn?
Yes, I'm going to share your presentation right now. There you go. Just let me know when to advance.
All right, now I can see what I'm talking about. So, yeah, hi, and like you said, my name's Corey Scott, and I'm down here in Paoli, Indiana, Paoli Junior Senior High School. And we've got a school farm that really started by accident in 2013, 2014. Honestly, you know, I was getting kind of burnout on how I was teaching ag, because I'm an ag science business teacher here at Paoli. Was really getting kind of tired, just trying to teach from a book and going over, you know, we'd switched to 1-to-1. So all of our kids I'm doing math and English, and then they wanted us to do all this technology stuff, and it was really making my job difficult. And like I said, this whole thing started by accident. So basically at the end of that year, that 2014, you know, I just said that I got to change things up. So if you want to move to the next slide, this is how it all started. So basically I went to my bosses there in that summer before the 14-15 school year and told them that I was going to bring a pig to school. And they said, "What do you mean, Mr. Scott, you're going to bring a pig to school?" And I was like, "Well, it's either that or I'm going to do something else. I can't do it. You want me to use these computers and do all this?" and teach them how to write blogs. And you know, if we're going to do that, then I'm going to do it using a pig. So initially, you know, I kind of gave him an ultimatum. Honestly, I know it sounds bad, but you know, my bosses were like, listen, Mr. Scott, if bringing a pig to school is going to make you happy, then bring a pig to school and we'll trust you to figure out the details and all that. So basically the photo there shows Miss Boots was her name. And she was the pig that we started this whole thing with. And all I did, I went and borrowed some gates off of the fairgrounds, and I set her up out in the corner of the greenhouse. And you can see we've got some tarps over the top of her because the greenhouse is really the worst place in the world to try to raise animals that don't like heat. So we made it work, you know, and I had the kids writing blogs. We had a web page. We had all this stuff that we were doing using technology with our pig, but we were still back in ag, and back to doing more of what I thought I was signing on to do when I first started teaching back in 2000. So then, you know, in 14, 15, we got the pig. We you know, learned how to breed the pigs, and we wrote, you know, blog post about that experience. And each of the kids had their own web pages about their experience with Miss Boots. And, you know, it really just started to go over big. You know, yes, please, Carly. Thank you. Sorry, my kid just now got out. Anyway, so we got her bred, and you know, we learned about vaccinations, and we wrote about that. And you know, the sad part is that she was due, you know, over Christmas break, and all of my kids that were here, you know, I had probably 100 students at the time. And they were all sad that they'd spent all this time and work and effort with her, and they weren't going to get to see the babies born. So one of the kids came up with a webcam idea, and you know, so we had the webcam. Ended up with, I forget how many viewers we had that night, but you know, in our small town in Paoli, there's not a whole lot going on. And we ended up with, I want to say, somewhere around 1,500 viewers that night just to watch Miss Boots give birth, which was exciting. And, you know, then that's kind of when our bosses, you know, knew that I was on to something with us having that much community involvement and that much student interest. I think the greenhouse that night, there was about probably 40 of them actually showed up over Christmas break to see it live, which was exciting. And it really just, you know, brought a renewed energy to me. It brought a renewed energy to the kids. And you know, we knew we were on to something. Now at the end of that year, you know, because our primary focus at the beginning, like I said, it happened by accident. So we weren't really sure where we were going or what we were doing. We just knew we wanted to do something. So if you want to switch to the next slide, kind of where we started at was focusing on growing show pigs. And that's really kind of our, what we can call our dual purpose. So we started in the beginning just raising show pigs. And it wasn't until like late into the second year, because as soon as Boots was done, you know, we sold the babies and they were all going to the 4-H shows. And Boots, we actually sold her to a local farmer. So she went and, you know, continued being a pig later on. But in the second year, we've actually went from 1 gilt to 2 gilts, and we had Dolly and Peppy. And Dolly and Peppy, we kind of went through the same thing. We still had our webcams, and we still had, you know, kids writing blogs and websites and all that stuff. but we ran into a problem in March when we sold our babies, and February when we weaned those babies. Dolly had a farm to go to and Peppy did not. And here's where our accident happened. One of the kids was like, well, why don't we just eat her at school? And, I was like, well, that kind of makes sense. So I talked to the bosses and we all kind of piddled around with it because, with the webcams and a school our size, everybody knew Peppy and they knew Dolly and they knew Boots, and like the kids come down and see the pigs all the time. They're always checking on them on our web cams and stuff. So we weren't sure exactly how that was going to go over for them to be eating, Miss Peppy. But it ended up and we were very open and honest with them that they were going to be eating, Peppy Q that day. And it ended up being probably one of our largest lunch days ever. The kids just could not get enough, couldn't get enough of it. And so essentially that's where our farm to table story kind of started and was born, was realizing that kids really do appreciate knowing exactly where their food came from. And yes, they knew her, they took care of her, they loved her. But at the end of the day, she served her ultimate purpose. And that's kind of where we realized we were onto something and started growing pretty quick after that point. So if you want to skip on to the next slide. I kind of got these out of order, but that's okay. This picture here just kind of jumps ahead probably a couple more years, because basically our pig program went from 1 pig to 2 pigs to 4 pigs. And then, we started running out of room in the greenhouse because we, started with 1 and we now had 4. We actually, that 4th year, I think we went to 6 or 8, and some of them were off campus and some of them, because 4 was about a max that we could hold in the greenhouse. But our plant side of things, our horticulture kids, they were wanting to start experimenting with growing the vegetable side of food for our cafeteria here at school. So since we had the greenhouse full of pigs, we had to move all of our plant production inside. And so basically, if you're looking at the pictures there on the left, that's what we started with. It was just a floor bed with styrofoam floats growing lettuce. And, we wanted to get that side of kids involved in the production of their own food too. And so we started growing a lot of different colors and a lot of different varieties, because we got into some of the reds and purples, and the kids just thought we had the most fancy salads anywhere, because they didn't know lettuce came in any other color before that. Now the picture on the right, that shows the vertical beds. Because we started with 1 floor bed, and it went off like crazy. So we went to 4 beds, and we're trying to get enough beds to keep up with what the cafeteria was demanding. The problem is the pigs were still had the greenhouse full, and we were running out of floor space in the shop to be able to grow that much lettuce. So the kids went to work, and the picture there on the right shows the vertical beds that we built. And the kids designed it. They built it. Instead of using 4x8, they've got 2x16 beds with 4 of them stacked up. The actual design of the thing that they worked out was they use waterfalls, which I couldn't get a video to attach, but basically the pump pumps the water from the bottom and it keeps all the nutrients and stuff circulated as it goes. It works its way down to the other end, the water falls down into the next bed, and then water falls its way all the way to the bottom. And the waterfalls serve to oxygenate and keep the nutrients stirred up. So we went from, one bed to essentially what, 2, 4, now we have 8, which allows us to harvest 2 beds per week in a rotation. Still not quite enough to do all of our lettuce needs, but it does supplement quite a bit. So that's kind of where we started with the hydroponics there, about year 3 or 4 of the pigs. If you want to go ahead and jump ahead, another one. And this shows our vertical system. This one we use as an herb garden, which I took this picture. It's not got anything in it right then, but basically right now our school is partnered with OPA, which is our cafeteria management company. And, they like to have a lot of fresh lettuce and tomatoes and a lot of fresh vegetables, but they also like to use a lot of herbs and stuff. So this just shows a picture of one of our vertical walls that we've been playing with for the last few years and just using it to grow herbs. If you want to jump ahead. This is a couple of our bucket systems that we use to grow peppers and tomatoes with. And right now, those are still kind of, I don't want to say super successful, but we after a while get quite a few tomatoes off of them. We've had to reset right now. So we're basically going to be waiting probably till late spring or, maybe even next fall before we can really crank out a lot of tomatoes like we were. But that's just 2 of the different systems that we use here that, the kids wanted to try out. And we try to let the kids experiment with a lot of this stuff and try new things and new ways of growing food. So that's a couple of those. Go ahead. Some of the stuff we've noticed since we started primarily teaching using the farm to table format, just getting a lot of kids to come back. Used to, we had a lot of one and dones. So they would come into ag for 1 year and then we might see them later. We might not ever see them again. But we are seeing kids that are staying for a second and a third year. We're getting a lot more kids that are going into ag in college once they graduate from high school. We've got several of them right now in ag production at Purdue and Vincennes and a lot of other colleges. So the farm to table format's definitely increased the number of kids leaving Paoli High School and headed into ag. So we're pretty excited about what's happened with that. Go ahead. Again, we've seen a big increase in our community involvement. Most of the time, I don't do these webinars and presentations. I have the kids do it. So our kids train quite a bit. They know our program inside and out. We've presented, I don't know how many presentations, but anytime we get an opportunity to go to a Farm Bureau meeting or, really any group, Master Gardeners or any group that wants to know about our program, we'll load up the kids and they'll go give you kind of the same talk that I'm giving you. Theirs usually last a little bit longer and they do a much better job than I do, but a lot more community involvement, a lot more community pride in our program from the people that live in Paoli. Just about everybody knows of our pig program and our food program. So that's been a big plus for us as well, using the farm to table method. Let's go ahead. And these are just some different pictures. We got our website down there at the bottom. And you can find our website if you go to Paoli Community Schools or Paoli Junior Senior High School. There's a link to our page. It's just Paoli Farm to Table. And there's just some other random pictures of, news articles, and we're constantly on, different social media sites and things, spreading the positive message of, agriculture and being good advocates for our profession. So go ahead and skip to the next one. Here's when we went to the State House a few years ago. It's been probably right before COVID hit. The State House invited us up to come and speak about our program and what we are doing here. So there was the late Representative Davison and Representative Bartels invited us in to take a picture after our presentation. And so that was a really neat experience for the kids. And, we've do a lot of legislative type things. The year before last, we kind of ran into a hiccup with the school making us bid. Well, it wasn't the school, it's really the DOE was making us bid to sell our products to the school. And, it became very difficult for us to be able to compete with Gordon Food Service and Cisco and some of these big companies to be able to sell directly to our school. So after this visit, we actually went and started lobbying a lot of legislators, and we got House Bill passed that now in Indiana allows a school to buy school-raised products up to $7,500 a year without any bidding. So our kids went through that process. They called legislators and wrote emails, and it was really interesting to go through that process. And I thought it was good for the kids to be able to see that, they could make a difference. And there was a law that made it hard for us to compete. When our kids are growing it and they want to eat it, but then they can't because we're not cheaper than Cisco. So they went out and got the law changed to where now our school can buy from us without any bids, which is nice. We still have to be competitive, but we don't have to be the lowest bidder. So it helps quite a bit. And I was proud of the kids for taking that initiative. Go ahead and skip the next one. I'm trying to I don't want to eat into Riley's time. Basically, our program's set up like a real world business. Our animal science side of things runs all the pig program. Our plant side of the program runs all the lettuce and vegetable productions. Our ag business classes take care of the sales and inventory and production scheduling and all those things that they would do in the real world. They invoice, they do the accounting. So it's a real world business, and it makes it really easy to teach those things when the kids are in charge of making sure that we are profitable and able to move on, leave it in better shape than they had it for the next group of kids that come through. So that's kind of how we've got the program set up. You want to go ahead and jump to the next one. Here's just more pictures of kids interacting with the pigs. And this was one of the last years that we were in the greenhouse. And go ahead and jump to the next one. So after we got through with that fifth year or the fourth year, and we realized that we were going to need more room, basically our kids decided that we were going to build on. And at the time, the school said that they were going to build us a barn so we would have plenty of room for the pigs. And then our superintendent, unfortunately, was invited to leave our school, I guess be the best way to put that. So anyways, he left, and then in the middle of all that mess, our barn disappeared. So basically our kids took it upon themselves that if the school wasn't going to pay for the barn, that they would do that. So essentially we spent about 6 months trying to come up with a plan and figure out how to pay for a facility. So if you want to jump ahead. Oop, wrong way. There we go. There we go. So took us about 6 months. And I can tell you, taking a group of, 50 kids probably were really actively involved in making sure that we could build and expand and get our pigs in their own facility that's actually designed for pigs and be able to get our greenhouse back for the plant kids. Man, they came together. And essentially, we started off with a goal. We thought it would cost $50,000. And one of our school board members that was, there before our superintendent left, he kind of put it in their mind that they could build this building by themselves. And, he wrote us a check for, I want to say $5,000 to get us started. So we set a goal of $50,000 and we got to $50,000 in about a month and a half. And then our school realized that we were serious and they were going to have to actually pay attention to us. So they let us hire an architect, and then the architect came in and laughed at our $50,000. He said, "You're not going to be able to even get anywhere close to it for $50,000. He said, "You need to get to at least 100. And of course, us and the kids all felt like we'd been punched in the gut because, we thought we were doing great once we got to 50. But, they kind of took a minute to be sad, and then they went right back to work, and took us about another 4 weeks, and they made it to $100,000. So then the architect said, "Well, fine, I'll get started on the drawings." And then once he got to doing some calculating, he came back and said, "Yeah, I'm sorry, but we're going to be closer to 150 by the time we get all the school building regulations met," because he was very clear that we weren't building a barn at a school. We were building at a school that would also be used as a barn. So long story short, by the time it was all said and done, we ended up spending $215,000 on this barn. All 100% of it was student raised. They went and lobbied and wrote grants, and they gave speeches, and we had a lot of people that donated. We had people in our community that started listing the barn project as memorials for loved ones. Sorry, go ahead and skip forward. So basically, if you take a look at these last two pictures, this is where our barn is at now. So the left picture there shows us the barn before the girls come in. And then this picture I took this morning, well, not this morning, right before I emailed this to Megan, of the kids out there taking care of their pigs. And basically every morning they go out and they feed and they clean the pens up and they spend the time with them. We're very fortunate right now. We've got 12 pigs in the program. 6 are housed on campus, and then there's 6 housed off campus. As far as how the pig business runs, I know I'm running way over here, but the kids actually own the pigs now, which is something we kind of changed up there a few years ago. So the kids own their own pigs. All we really do is provide a facility now. So the kids own the pig, they bring it in. Usually it's one, like there's 3 of those out there that were born here last year, and they showed them this summer, and then they brought them back in this fall to breed and start the next generation. So they buy all of their semen, they buy all of their feed. The one thing that we do is sell pen sponsorship. So you can see all the banners above the pens, and basically those are companies that year after year they'll buy a pallet of shavings, for that pen. So that kind of takes a little bit of the cost off of the kids and allows them to be a little more profitable. But with our webcams and our pig app, we now have a pig app that people have on their phone and can check on our pigs anytime they want to. You know, we make sure that all those sponsorships are visible, and we support those on our Facebook page and Instagram and all that stuff too. But essentially, as far as the farm to table program goes, so once these kids raise their pigs, you gotta remember our primary focus is show pigs. So in March we have a show pig sale, and then our pigs that sell locally, I kind of keep track of who buys them and where they're going, and then essentially the Paoli farm to table program, we go back after the fair, and we buy those pigs that were raised here and raised by our kids. Then we have them processed locally at Sanders Processing in Celestine, because they're a certified processor, which to use at the school or be able to sell retail, you know, we have to have it process certified. So we buy the pigs back after the fair off of those kids, and we have it processed. And then we bring the pork back here, and then the farm to table program lives off of the difference in what we're selling retail versus, you know, after we paid for the processing and all that. So the kids own the pigs, the kids get to keep the money from the babies that they sell. And then we buy them back after they fed them out, get them processed, and then sell the pork to the school. And then the pork that the school can't buy, you know, because there's a certain parts of the pig that school can't use, like ribs and, I don't know, there's a few other cuts on there that we get back that the school just can't use. You know, we sell those to local restaurants. We've got a partnership with the Lost River Market and Deli here in town. We sell a lot through there. And then usually once or twice a year, we'll have like a community sale, and we just open up the back door and tell people we're selling pork, and they'll line up and fill their orders and get the freezer cleaned out before the next group comes in the summer. So that's kind of a real quick rundown of Paoli farm to table. Oh, there's a picture of Cutter. He was excited. Cutter's a 7th grader, and he got to breed his pig for the first time this year. And I don't know, that picture just makes me happy. It's fun to see how excited they get. And, you know, she's due like December the 20th, I think. So can't wait to see his face when babies start coming out. But anyways, I'll stop there and answer any questions once Riley gets done with his presentation.
Fantastic. Thank you so much for sharing, Corey. I'm sure people have lots of questions for you, but let's let Riley share his screen now. And Riley, I'll hand it over to you.
Awesome. Can you guys see that?
You are great.
Awesome. Well, thanks, Megan. And you know, I think it's a good synergy from the purpose of this webinar that I follow. You know, Corey, he really talks about the establishment, and I laugh to myself. We're in day 50 of our existence here at Amp Lab, and so it's just super excited to see how there is synergy in very different places, and so just very thankful. As I said, my name is Riley Johnson. I'm the director of a new program in Fort Wayne called the Amp Lab at Electric Works. And so today I want to give you just a little 30,000-foot view of the world we're living in here as we are trying to introduce urban farming in a very non-traditional way. And we've had some really early success with that in our project. And so I think the first thing is being a new program, we are ambiguous by design, and that kind of is hard sometimes for people to wrap their mind around. But so AMP Lab essentially is exactly what you see there. It's a community-based design think tank and launch pad. And so we are a half-day program in Fort Wayne Community Schools for juniors and seniors. So if you think of the kind of traditional career center model, logistically, we really kind of follow that, where students are eligible to come to us only in that kind of capstone mode. We're blessed to have 2 sessions of juniors and seniors. We have 350 students total that come to us from 5 high schools. So Fort Wayne Community Schools, I think FWCS and IPS teeter back and forth on who's the biggest district in the state, but 400 is our max capacity in terms of what our building can hold. And so we're really blessed that in year 1, we've really had a resounding interest, not just from kids, but for a lot of people that know that this opportunity might be good for a kid that doesn't know it's good for them. And so just statistically, some things that help tell our story. So we are 65% minority. We're 55% female. We have students of all walks of life. And so we have 4 valedictorian candidates, and then we have 50 students that have a 1.8 to a 2.0 GPA. And so we've just been really blessed to see our kind of ambiguous model be appealing to where a wide variety of kids can see. And then the last thing I think that's important just from the logistical piece is we are not an ag pathway. We are aligned to the Indiana graduation pathways, but every student that comes to us is in the entrepreneurship pathway. And I hope you'll see why we chose that route here in a little bit. And so, as in our name, AMP Lab is the first thing open of a very exciting project here in Fort Wayne. There is a 39-acre General Electric factory that is sat really vacant in just west of our downtown core for about 30 years now. And so about 5 years ago, the idea for a redevelopment of this campus came up, and really they wanted to have an education entity, and our district knew that if it wasn't going to be us, we didn't want it to be someone else. And so we knew that having a program on this campus was going to be really valuable for our students. So it is mixed use. So here on November 1st is when the second tenant moves in, but it is anywhere from health sciences to corporate headquarters to a food hall and a year-round farmers market, to higher ed and scientific research and development. And then there is a kind of a retail social living component as a part of the campus as well. And so we're just super excited to see that. And so I think the last thing programmatically is, I said we chose not to do an ag pathway because in our community, students' awareness and engagement with, I would even just say gardening, is not something that is in their mind or something that they think is a possibility. And so by marrying really the concepts around entrepreneurial mindsets and innovative thinking with various industry skill sets, very similar to what Corey finished with, our real goal at AMP Lab is how are students solving real problems with real solutions. And so that comes to life in a variety of ways. So I'll explain a little bit more about that. And then we've tried to really capture, like, when you're exposing inner city students to growing their own food, we've tried to really capture this thought of what does it mean to think of it through the lens of generational wealth. And we know that that term usually is attached to money, but we've really looked at it through the lens of how do we treat skills, relationships, and experiences as that wealth. So if our students walk out of AMP Lab with new skills, new people that they've brought into their ecosystem, and new opportunity through experiences, that they're going to change the generations that come after them. And so we have a really unique building here. So we have a 30,000 square foot space. I don't have a lot of room to sprawl out. And our building is really divided into 4 studios. But the blessing is the student experience is not self-contained. And so I'll talk a little bit about how the skill sets in relationship to the 4 spaces really cross over. And so we have our Create Studio, which is the gamut of content creation. So animation, graphic design, photography, video, and audio. We have our Venture Studio, which is business development. So just like Corey talked about the ag business kids, really focusing on that. In our Venture Studio, students really focus on concept development and market validation. Our Make Studio is a makerspace and fabrication lab. So we've got the most simplest hand tools all the way up to, we have 3 different types of CNC machines. So we've got 35 3D printers. We have a variety of laser cutters and 3D modeling systems. But that idea, if I need to develop a tangible prototype, I have the tools. And then lastly, we have our Grow Studio, which is our science R&D lab and greenhouse. And so as we launched our program here, we really thought, how do we find and create authentic engagements with growing your own food, so that it was something that students would become more curious about. And so because students really are able to explore all 4 studios, we've been blessed that all 350 of our students now in the first quarter have already been engaged in what it means to be able to grow your own food. And then we obviously have a subset of that 350 that have started to really go deeper with that. And so just as you can kind of see, the biggest difference, so our greenhouse is actually built into the DNA of the building. And so I was super weirded out when they told me that. Like, when I thought greenhouse, you always think about the ability to build it outside. But we're really just blessed to have this really awesome R&D studio that's completely flexible, directly attached to this beautiful indoor greenhouse space. So we don't have a lot of square footage, so we're just a little bit under 1,000 square foot in our greenhouse. So we really have had to what type of partnerships we look to expand. So here's just a quick kind of, you can see, so on the right side is the R&D space. It holds up to about 50 kids, and it's completely flexible. And then on the left side is just a decent snapshot of what we started with this summer in our vertical towers. But you can see they did an amazing job in terms of the infrastructure of the greenhouse space. Is everything we need. So we've got 6 massive skylights, and then it's a completely isolated, temperature controlled space. So this number I share with you because I think what we've learned, 92% of our 350 kids had never experienced their family in their house growing something in a garden. And so 92% of our students that have come to us this year, their first engagement with urban farming or even just the concept of growing your own food was in our building. And so we really felt a lot of responsibility to think, how do we make sure that every kid is exposed? But we really start to think about what does it mean to create value where, we've got a student, Christian, young African-American male, has never had a desire to grow his own food that now has seen value in it. And so then what does it look like for us to make sure that he's got opportunity to both take action, but also then come back to his own neighborhood and use that as a liberating tool. And so how it started to come to life, I love the synergy, right, where Corey and I are in very different environments and in very different communities, but a lot of the core outcomes are much in alignment. And so what we've really seen in our first 50 days is 3 very different verticals starting to grow in terms of how we take what we use or what we have growing in our greenhouse and how we activate those resources. So very similar to Corey, the ability to be entrepreneurial with it. And so we're blessed that in the farmers market that is opening on November 1st here on the Electric Works campus, AmpLab has a dedicated space to sell our products and produce that come out of our building. So that idea of students really creating revenue. We've got the ability where we have started some relationships with restaurants and vendors about growing specialized product for them to purchase from us. So we've got a local breakfast place right around the corner from our building that we're working on some arrangements around some specific tomato hybridization that he's really interested in us growing and him purchasing. Second is the community piece. What does it look like to really use food in an urban setting for good? And so we have a neighborhood elementary where we're taking some of the lettuce that we're growing in-house here and having it be a part of their menu. And that's really then activating a collaborative partnership between our students and their 4th and 5th graders about creating some in-home options for the neighborhood around them to grow their own gardens, because that elementary is in a very stereotypical food desert. And so we looked at, instead of trying to ask those people to come to a workshop, what could it look like for us and that elementary to, knock on their front door with the resources necessary. And then the last thing I'll share is the research side. And so I think this is the thing that we probably didn't anticipate at all, but how we can leverage urban farming in terms of really diving into the science behind it. And so a good example of that, Artemis International is a berry pharmaceuticals company here in Fort Wayne that obviously has an international presence. They have brought us 2 internal R&D problems in terms of food science, that our students will utilize our greenhouse and our grow studio in partnership with their hypothesis and solutions around those problems of practice. And so I think for us, the newness is really exciting, but I think to like put it in a nutshell, what we've really seen in Fort Wayne and with the launch of this, having students that don't know what agriculture is has been really empowering for us to look at how do we treat growing their own food, whether it be something that we can just put right back in the hands of people that need it, or we can use it for entrepreneurial purposes, or whether we can work to get it on the menu in the school district, really treating food as currency and what that looks like for them in their communities, that they can take their experience here at AmpLab in our greenhouse and we can be a partner for Catalyst in their communities throughout the city. So I appreciate your time. Thank you. And obviously, I believe now we're going to questions for Corey and I. So thank you.
Fantastic. Thank you very much, Riley, for sharing that with us. Yes, we have 6 minutes. So if you have questions, please feel free to unmute yourself, raise your hand, put your question in the chat. If there are questions that we do not get to, you can email them to me or Brianna, and we'll get you in touch with Riley or Corey. Also, their contact information is available and will be available as we post this on our website, this recording, if you guys have further conversations or discussions you'd like to have with them.
Can I jump in with a question?
Yeah, go ahead, Jonathan.
I'm down here where if you got people on your screen. Yeah, Jonathan Barkley, Indianapolis. I'm curious, on the entrepreneurial pathway, and I know you're just in the first 50 days, so this may have not emerged yet, but do you potentially see, are there ways to connect what the kids are doing in AmpLab and some of the results that may come from that and projects that come from that more into, for example, linking in with health education curriculum, nutrition education components? Maybe this happens a little bit with the elementary school, I don't know, but I'm really interested sort of in connecting dots of different components of what's happening in school spaces and connecting those dots in a more holistic health and nutrition picture.
I think my initial response to that would be, I think we definitely see that the connecting of the dots happening downwards in our relationship in the kind of the K-8 space. Mm-hmm. Only being a half-day program, we hope that a lot of our experiences influence and have a positive relationship with what happens at the home high school. But what we've seen is our ability to utilize the power of our high schoolers in making those connections at the elementary level and middle school level is where we think we probably have the most opportunity, especially when it comes to the nutrition food science space.
Thanks.
Does anyone else have any questions for our presenters right now?
Hey, this is Allie with the school nutrition program at the Department of Ed. And for Corey, you were mentioning that your students go out and talk to groups about all of everything you guys do, which is amazing. How can we reach out to you to get them to come speak to our food service directors and those people who really would, I'm sure, love to see how that partnership works and how to do this at their own school?
Um, well, right now, I mean, we'd be happy to come and talk to any groups, but you know, right now we just switched from a school managed cafeteria program to this OPA food management system. And they, I don't know if you know OPA or not. I think we're like one of the first schools in Indiana to have them. But they are super excited about what we do here at Paoli. Is one of the main reasons that they wanted to come in here, just because they are all about fresh and local. You know, they partner with even other local growers around the community to bring that food in here. So, you know, we're just 9 weeks into this new food management company, and we're still kind of working out a few kinks with them and figuring out exactly how our partnership's going to look with them. So yeah, I mean, it's kind of nice because this group is excited. Again, we've got our pork ready. We've got some lettuce that's just about ready, and because we didn't want to go too super hard this year, because all we knew at the end of last year was that we were getting a new cafeteria management system. And so this year we've been kind of taking things a little slower, just because if they came in and didn't want to buy anything, you know, then we didn't want to have a bunch to get rid of. So, you know, like I said, we're still working out a few kinks on how we work with our new cafeteria staff, a new management group. The old system where the school ran it, you know, we were really familiar how to work with that. So yeah, like I said, we're still trying to get a few questions answered right now, but you know, probably by second semester we should have our system worked out here to where we know exactly how we're going to work with this new company. So yeah, just reach out. We'd love to kind of come and talk about how we manage all of it.
Great. Thank you.
Hey, unfortunately, it is 4 p.m., so I am going to end our time together today. But if people do have other questions for Corey or for Riley, I'm sure they'd be more than happy to connect with you via email or another platform and answer those questions for you. We will be sure to get this recording, their pictures, their bios, their contact information up on our website as soon as possible. Please give us like a few days. Brianna is out in the community in the coming days. But we're really hopeful that we'll get that up quickly for you guys so you guys have all of that information at your disposal. I want to thank Corey and Riley. Thank you very, very much for being here. I think a lot of us learned a lot of really fun and interesting information today. I encourage everyone to join us again in November. We are looking at local procurement in the healthcare setting. We have some really interesting presenters, one again from Paoli in the Lost River Market about their Produce RX program. We also have Seth Grant from Eskenazi talking about his institutional buying program because they procure a lot of local produce at Eskenazi. So if you guys have any questions about that, you can find that also on our website, on our calendar, and you can sign up for that. If you need a direct link or would like a calendar hold, please just email me and I will forward that calendar hold to you. We're very thankful for all of your time today and hope that everyone enjoys the rest of their evening.